Okay, right, let's start. Another warm welcome to our web presentation of Output Manager. Some of you have already been in the technical session a bit earlier today. This is now the sales presentation. For those people who haven't been there, my name is Roberto Rocci and I'm the Business Development Manager for Output Manager in Europe. I've been working with this product for many years, and of course this product has been taken over by NSI, bought together with the development and the support desk and myself, and so it's been taken over completely from a company called Bar Systems, and many of you might know Bar Systems or might have previous experience with it. So it's a product which has been in the market for quite some time, and NSI has now done also a great job in enhancing it and bringing it to the fleet and MFD kind of market. So with no further ado, since there's just a couple of people who've just literally joined now, I have muted all the microphones. There is a question pane. If you have a question, please do type it in. I do see when they pop up, and I'll try and answer them there and then, but if not, at the very end of the presentation, I'll answer them at least then there. So this is a sales presentation, so we won't look at the product, but we'll look at the details of some of the functionality in more detail. The first question is, of course, what is Output Manager? And Output Manager is an integrated output management system that gives companies control over what's being printed by whom and where and so forth. So it's a connectivity tool which connects to all the different environments, whether it's an office, a print room, a CAD, or maybe a data center, a production environment. And it can deliver information to any number of output devices. Typically, we're talking about printers, but this can also be an archiving system or other systems. Now, today, we only have, of course, limited time, so we will be concentrating on the Office features, Office and maybe Enterprise, really, which are everything which has to do with Office printing and maybe the CAD print room. Now, the CAD gets, of course, everything, but we're really concentrating on the Office part here. Yes, just seen the first question. Are there different versions of Output Manager? No, it's all one version, but the licensing kind of bundles together certain functionality in this Office, Enterprise, and Production. So it's purely a licensing or marketing bundle, but it is the same product, the same version, and of course, if you start with an installation with a couple of Office devices, and then you need some production capability, you can upgrade the product and you can buy the appropriate things, and it all fits together. It's all one product. So let's have a look. What is the problem about printing? Well, in the first line, it's because it costs money, and everybody wants to do lots of savings. So let's have a look at where these costs are. The first ones are quite clear to everybody, of course. These are the costs associated with the hardware and the printing as such, which is toner, paper, your lease contract, floor space, electricity, you name it, that sort of cost. The next cost, which a lot of people don't really realize, is what we call the soft costs. And a Gartner report said that about 23% of all calls to the help desk in a company are print related, which means if we can save them if we can automate and simplify processes and help the help desk, there's a huge saving potential right there. And finally, there is potential costs, and this is, if you would imagine maybe being a bank or an insurance company, of course, you want to make sure that the documents, you don't receive the wrong document in your envelope. On the other side, if you're going in an office environment, the wrong people see printouts which are left in the open, etc. So you have security breaches and embarrassment of delivering the wrong stuff, the wrong prints to the wrong people. So there are a lot of issues here, and we'll have a look at these issues, but we've got here a little story. This is based on a customer in the US. I think that the people are real, but the picture's obviously not. But here we look first at Stefan. Stefan is the compliance and security director. Now his problem is that he needs to make sure that, being a hospital, that all the patient records are secure, that employee information and all of those document types don't get out into the wrong hands. And as you can imagine, with a hospital, there are lots of different people. There are 200 plus doctors, nurses, technicians. There are patients going in and out. So there is a huge variety of different users. And of course, there are a huge amount of MFDs and desktop devices, not all of which are in secure areas. So one of the functionalities he uses straight away here is our authentication. And this is the authentication on a device. So we can lock down the device. And if you want to use the device, you have to authenticate. Typically today you do this with a proximity card. And I had earlier a question about whether we support RFIDs. Yes, we do. And any other card reader that is supported by the device itself. You don't have to have proximity. You can have a PIN code, or you can have a Windows domain login, or you can have a combination of all of those. And that enables here Robert, the IT guy, to make sure that only the people who should be using this system are actually using the system at all. So if a system is, if an MFD is in the corridor, that it's not used by bypassing people just for fun or by people who shouldn't be using the system. So his benefits are quite clear. From a technical point of view, he's connecting this, of course, to LDAP or Active Directory, which makes the overhead very small. And he also gets a complete trail of all the functionality, everything which has been used on the system. And he can also account for the copy and the print activity, the hard copying, scanning, everything he might want. Let's have a look at here, Robert, the IT director. Print is still going up in most companies, not necessarily high volume print, but the printing of emails and brochures and all sorts of other document types which come from the office. So his challenge is to basically reduce the amount of spend. And one simple thing of doing this is by, for example, controlling access to color. But he still needs to be able to guarantee the correct printing of mission critical things. In a hospital, that would be probably patient lists and appointment cards and so forth. So what would he do? We have here not only the authorization, but the we can lock certain functionality. So the office worker or the nurse who might have authenticated themselves at the device, we now give them certain functionality. For example, in this case, they are allowed to use black and white copy, but they're not allowed to copy in color. Also, for security reasons, we've locked the system so you can't scan to email, because with patient records, etc., you don't want them to go out in the wrong place, so we lock that functionality altogether. But in this case, this person is allowed to fax. So any functionality on the device, we can lock and open for each individual user or user group or department, etc. When it comes to printing, we might allow this particular office user, or here in this case from human resources, to print in mono, in black and white, and in color, but we can still control the costs by saying, if this print comes from email, so from in either Lotus Notes or Outlook, then we force it to be duplex and we force it to be mono. Because quite often when you print an email, it counts as a color click because there's a URL in there which is blue, and therefore you have a color click for a document which generally does not need to be color at all. We can also apply page limitations and notifications and so forth, so that every office worker has only a certain amount of money or amount of content to spend on print, and these costs and quotas, of course, visible to them. Another typical thing that Robert, the IT director, would then do is control the print by applying certain rules. For example, this employee wants to send a 300-page document to their normal network device. An output manager here can stop that and say, no, we can redirect this job automatically to a more efficient device. It could be the MFD on the corridor, or maybe a print room, a dedicated one. We can also show the cost to the employee and say, if you're printing it on the network printer, it will cost £5, but if you're printing it on the MFD on the corridor, it will only cost £1.50. So we can give him the choice and the tools to really make the right choices. Of course, Output Manager supports all device types. So whether this is a mid-range printer, an MFD, or a production device, which is in a dedicated production print room, Output Manager is device and brand independent, and all the job properties, for example, the tray commands, the plex, stapling, any job property will automatically follow to the destination printer and come out correctly. So there's no intervention needed by anybody on this job. Now, in a high-pressure environment like a hospital, it is also important that when you print and the print is not available, that you have a backup plan. In this case, if it's only paper jam or out of paper, you might want to send automatically this job to the next available printer, which could be down the corridor, it could be in the same building, it could be elsewhere. And you want to notify the help desk to fix the problem. So this could be toner is low and therefore they need to go and fill up the toner levels or something. Our redirection or our print failover does not have to be the same printer or the same printer family or the same printer type. It could be that we fail over from a small desktop printer to a production printer, therefore having total different controller, total different tray commands. Again, it's brand independent and all the job properties will follow through and will come out correctly. So Robert, in order to show, of course, the savings he's doing, if you don't know what you're printing and how much it costs, then it's also hard to show the savings. So reporting is, of course, a very important part. And we have all these different people printing to different devices with different rights. Some are allowed to print color and some only black and white, and some are allowed to fax and not. So we can, first of all, do any kind of report on device level and see which device is the most used, and therefore we can also see if one device is maybe underutilized, we might be able to swap it with a device which is totally overutilized. So we can also provide reports based on user, based on applications, but typically would have maybe a group or a department or maybe even a location like Wetzlar or Munich or I don't know, if you've got a big corporate company rather than a hospital with multiple destinations and locations, then you could have also reports on bigger locations. All of the reports we have, there are about 60 of them, come with the system. They are ready to be used, but they can also be customized. You'd find any kind of report, which I think is important to most people. However, you could change them and add to them, and you can also export them. So the benefits, coming back to Robert, the IT director, are of course important that he can reduce his costs. He saves money by redirecting the jobs to the most efficient device. And he can really softly change the user behavior because he can show the user very simply how much it costs to print on inefficient devices. So if you get the user buy-in, it's so much easier to change the behavior. So he gets a lot of benefits here with some very simple functionality. Now let's have a look at Lisa. Lisa does payroll, and of course she's in human resources, so all of her documents are confidential, and she doesn't want to print something and then run out to the printer and hope that nobody else has looked at it, or alternatively she would have a print in her own room, which of course is again inefficient. So what can she do? She can, of course, print to any device. We allow her to print to any device. And then she needs to authenticate at device level and therefore she can use a proximity card or, again, her device logon, or in fact, a mobile phone. So we can give her the ability to authenticate and to send her jobs using a mobile device to a specific location. And therefore, once she's standing in front of it, she releases her job and she can pick it up in safety and security. So no more print and sprint. And of course, there's also some cost savings here because she does not need a dedicated printer anymore. Let's have a look at the IT administrator. Now, what's his problem? He spends a lot of time with print drivers. And if you can imagine a big company which has multiple brands and different device types, he has to maintain a lot of different print servers, and he is installing a lot of different printer drivers. And I think people underestimate how much effort and time it takes to look at printer drivers. One estimate was that the costs of a print server, purely a print server, is at least £3,000 per annum, and the cost of maintaining printer drivers is humongous in terms of the effort for the certification, the rollout, and so forth. So if you use, without our software, without Output Manager, typically if users have different device types, they would have different device drivers. Each one looks different and each one gives a different user experience. So if one person moves from one department to the other, then they might see a different driver. They will call here this Robert and say, I can't use this printer, tell me how to do it. And there are lots of different device drivers here. With Output Manager, we have a unified printer driver. It is highly customizable, and therefore we have only one user experience for all of the network printers, for all of the multifunction devices, and any of the production devices. So every employee uses this one driver to drive all of their print. And the experience is, of course, consistent. Often these days, not so much in hospitals, but often these days you want to allow people to print via mobile devices, and people can, of course, use an email to send into Output Manager, and if they're known to the system, we will enable them to walk up to their device, authenticate, and release their jobs. If these people are not known to the system because they're a guest, then we can reply with an email and a PIN code and some instructions to maybe go to the reception desk or to a specific dedicated area and release their job there. Here there is an attachment which is a PDF, and that can be printed natively on most printers. But if it can't, because it's, for example, a PowerPoint slide or an Excel or an image format, then Output Manager has also got conversion modules that we can convert all of those formats into PDF. There is also a complete different application, which is NSI Mobile, which I would strongly recommend you also have a look at some point. And this gives you far more capability than just here being able to print, because it gives you also the capability of adding a job ticket. So with NSI Mobile, you could then also say you wanted this print in duplex and 16 copies and, I don't know, with a staple. That's something you can't do in this, but here this is already very good. So the benefits, coming back again, of course, to Robert here, the guy who looks after the infrastructure. He can spend a lot less time rolling out printer drivers and picking up the phone and explaining why things are not working. He's only got one printer driver which he can manage centrally. So all the functionality of this printer driver he can also manage centrally. So, and that brings us to the last slide, which is any questions now? I can already see there are some questions here. The first question here is, what is the report file format? And the report file format, we can automatically generate a number of formats. Typically it would be a PDF file, but we can also export in HTML, in Excel, in CSV, and one or two other formats. Can automatic report scheduling be set up? Yes, absolutely. Generally, you would, at the end of a shift, at the end of a month, generate all these reports automatically and also distribute them automatically. So reports can be sent via email, they can be dropped into folders, they can be actually added to somebody's follow me queue. How is the pricing compared to Equitrack? It's, well, the answer is you probably have to compare it really with all the features. So it's difficult to really say this, but what the people in America have told us who have done the pricing is that they've based it about underneath Equitrack, so it should be more cost efficient. I would like to compare this more on a feature basis, and really Output Manager starts where Equitrack finishes. So in an Office-only environment, we should be similar or maybe slightly less, but Equitrack doesn't cover a CRD print room. It doesn't do production printing. So there is a lot of things Equitrack doesn't do at all. So it's, yeah, we'd have to compare that really like for like. Are billing codes supported and how many levels? Yes, billing codes are supported, and you can import them as well. There is various levels, but I think it's actually 2. I need to double check, but I think as far as I know there are 2 levels supported, which means if you're associating cost with a, for example, if you're a law firm and you want to associate cost with a project, you can have customer NSI, and then underneath that, project A, project B, project C, so you have multiple projects within that company, within that cost code. Do the MFPs need to be PostScript? The answer is, depends on what you want to do. If you want to take, if the main benefit, or if you want to use our universal print driver and the pop-ups and the cost allocation, then yes, they do need to be PostScript. And I know there is sometimes it costs more to have the PostScript option enabled, but we do also have conversion, and we could convert to PCL, but then the cost, there's also cost implication on us converting to PCL, and it tends to be better if the devices are PostScript. If you only want to do things like accounting and job counting, etc., then we don't really need to do anything intelligently with the MFPs, and therefore they can stay in PCL as well. So it depends a bit on what you want to do, but our preference, without a shadow of a doubt, is always PostScript. How is the licensing? Well, the licensing has been thought about a lot, and there are 3 different licensings. Generally, you purchase the product, and we have bundled together certain functionality. So there is pricing, not pricing, licensing for office or for enterprise or for production. In terms of the functionality, it's only licensed by device type. So it doesn't matter whether you have one user or 10,000 users using the system. It doesn't also matter if you install it on one server or on 10 servers. It really is licensed by device. So we have 3 different device types: your network printers, your MFDs, because the MFDs need, of course, your embedded interface, and then production printers if they're over a certain speed. So all you need to do is count printers. Any other questions? Are users synchronized with Active Directory and Open LDAP and Novell? Yes, users are synchronized with certainly with Active Directory and LDAP. We can have multiple Active Directories, and we import them and synchronize them on a scheduled basis into our system. Now, we also have other methods like import of CSV files and database. Now, Novell is not a predetermined type we connect to, but of course you can export in Novell into, I don't know, CSV, for example, and then we can import it as CSV. So you don't need to type it for sure, but there isn't a Novell connector. But Active Directory, which I'm sure is probably 90% of the market with Open LDAP or LDAP as well, that is supported, and more than one. Any more questions? Are you able to get more than one print server? Absolutely. We can have, yes, you can have a master and a slave server. You can have multiple servers. So yes, you're totally flexible in how you construct this system. Yeah, multiple servers, absolutely. Job ticketing. I assume this is now web upload. There is a web upload capability which is very similar to our printer driver, and that gives you the capabilities of web ticketing. It is very basic, so you can't compare it with, of course, dedicated tools which do that, but the job ticketing, like you know, Plex, Duplex, and all sorts of other options are, of course, part of the product. In fact, if we have time, let me just have a quick look. Oh yes, we have time. I will show you the printer driver. Now, the document we're looking at is just a PDF. It happens to be our manual or the installation guide. And this is our universal print driver. And there are a lot of features on the top here, so most people wouldn't want to see those features. So within Active Directory, we organize them into groups and departments, and therefore we can limit the amount of functionality people see based on those user groups. So here you'd have all your typical things like, for example, if you wanted Duplex, you can see there is a graphic representation on the bottom left. And you can also add other properties, for example, you know, postage options, or whether you want to archive it or not into this very same driver. And because the question was about job ticketing, all the functionality you see in this printer driver is also available as a web upload capability, and this also, of course, submits the job right into the print, into, for example, a CAD print room. So if I just say print, just to show you this, in this case here, we get, for example, a pop-up appear, and in this pop-up, we are explaining that the printer they've chosen costs £2.52, and if they wanted to print it in the print room, it would be 56 pence. So you have some text you can create here, You can give them routing options. Earlier, somebody asked a question about billing codes. Here I've got only 3, so doing it on a department level. And if I submit this job, it won't let me, because if I'm human resources, I have to put in a PIN code to secure this, and I can submit this job. And there you go. Just to show you, I might as well, in a different presentation from earlier. No. I have this is from my earlier presentation. Let me just show that a bit bigger. Here you can see now what the MFD screen looks like. This is when you walk up to the device, you authenticate yourself, and here on the top you have the secure print release where you release all your jobs. And for those people who know the auto store, this has also got, for example, scan to email, and it's also got an update, and it will all look slightly different to give the user one unique experience, which is basically the same experience on whether you have secure release or the scan or capture workflow. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I would be very pleased if you have anything. Please do get in touch. My details are, of course, at the bottom where the questions were. You will be able to receive these presentations as well. Get in touch either with your regional sales manager or with myself or with our marketing department if there's anything you need. Yes, don't be a stranger. Please just, any questions, please just get in touch. Okay, and with all of this, if there's no more questions, I'll say thank you very much for listening, and I shall speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.